In today's video, one of the most horrific grizzly attacks on a father and his daughter took place while hiking together in Montana's Glacier National Park, resulting in them both being brutally mauled. Hit that like button and subscribe right now. This is the terrifying grizzly attack on Johan and Jenna Otter. Welcome to Final Affliction. The U.S. state of Montana is one of those places in the world that sparks adventure. The landlocked terrain is situated in the northern Rockies and Plains region in the northwestern United States. The fourth largest U.S. state boasts a whopping 147,000 square miles of area, peppered with brilliant mountain ranges in the western third of the state. The pristine wilderness and spectacular scenery are Mother Nature's way of showing off its wonderful creation. Animals including white-tailed deer, wolverines, elk, and even predators like black bears, coyotes, and wolves all coexist in the dazzling American landscape. Among them, however, is one of the world's most feared predators, the grizzly bear. Even the most experienced mountaineers, hikers, and adventurers are wary of these brown beasts of destruction. Sharing the land with these intelligent, powerful creatures should be carefully considered upon visiting Montana. Although grizzly bears seldom attack, when they do, it's a terrifying exhibit. On August 26, 2005, father and daughter Johan and Jenna Otter were hiking in Montana's Glacier National Park. Unfortunately, they happened to be at the wrong place and time as they felt the wrath and power of a mother grizzly bear. It was August 18, 2005, a week before Johan and Jenna's trip to Montana. With September just around the corner, Jenna's time was limited as she was headed to the University of California, Irvine as a freshman. The two decided to go on a memorable trip to celebrate Jenna's new chapter in life. They chose to hike at Glacier National Park. While Jenna was a young, athletic dancer, Johan was a runner who often participated in marathons. Consequently, a hike at a beautiful location seemed the perfect bonding option. August 25th. The day of the trip arrived. Johan woke up early, excited to head to the trail before anyone else. After all, yesterday was a rainy disappointment. However, today was different as the sun rays beamed through the clouds, coloring yellow the misty Montana wilderness. The two headed up the trail at around 7:30 a.m., ready for the ambitious hike ahead. Unbeknownst to them, this trip would test them in ways they could not have ever predicted. A thick carpet of thimbleberries sprinkled the bushes along the path. Other wildflowers like beargrass and lilies grew underneath the spruce and pine. Walking along Lake Josephine, the two managed to cover a great distance. Johan and Jenna were already above the tree line within 40 minutes of their hike. They gazed at the beautiful surrounding peaks lightly covered in snow. The two were in awe at the park's grandiosity. Continuing their journey, the hikers talked loudly to not surprise any bears that might be hiding in the bushes. They were well aware of the dangers and practiced precautionary measures diligently as they'd been taught to do. Approaching the southern flank of Mount Grinnell, the two fell silent as they stared at the snow-covered peaks glistening under the Montana morning. Johan felt grateful Jenna still wanted to participate in what he called a senior trip. The day could not have gone more perfectly. This would be an unforgettable day indeed, however, not in the way that they imagined. Although she felt safe knowing her father was with her, Jenna had an underlying feeling of nervousness. This was born from the knowledge that early hours were the time for feeding for various animals. Along the way, Johan took out his video camera and decided to record the park's natural beauty. The pine trees in the distance looked like strokes of paint, painstakingly done by a masterful artist, ensuring every detail was unique. "Dad, let's go. We've got a long way to go," Jenna urged her father, who was standing there still awestruck behind his camera. To her, Johan looked like an easy target, but Jenna quickly dispersed the thoughts. Johan understood this and quickly removed himself from the trance. Being the seasoned marathoner he was, Johan caught up to her in no time at all. Bear attacks in the park were extremely rare, considering the millions of visitors flocking annually. During these hikes, experts recommend carrying a can of bear spray, a non-lethal defense against potential predators. And this was precisely what Johan and Jenna did. However, they made one crucial mistake. The can was placed inside Johan's backpack. This was common practice though, as many people think attacks wouldn't really happen to them, until it does. The two climbed higher into the trail. If anything should happen to them, Johan and Jenna were to deal with the problem on their own. They continued to talk, unwittingly walking into territory that would soon change their lives. As they headed farther up, the clouds cleared, revealing the spectacular view of the mountains and lakes. This prompted Johan to take his camera again, and the two fell silent once more. Walking up the trail ahead of her father, Jenna reached a bend that hid whatever was behind it, and there it was, a large brown silhouette pacing in front of her. Before she could fully comprehend what she was seeing, Jenna's heart had already sunk to her stomach. The large grizzly bear mother walked towards her, followed by two yearling cubs. It was the worst possible scenario. The bear's most excellent danger detection tool is its nose. However, the wind was blowing down the mountain at the time. This prevented the animal from detecting the approaching father and daughter. A surprised bear, especially a mother grizzly, is highly aggressive and immensely dangerous. It was a perfect concoction of bad timing and bad luck. Turning away from the massive beast, Jenna began to run out of panic. She yelled to her father, warning him about the bear. Jenna was sure she was going to die. Turning his head towards his daughter's yelling, Johan saw the massive grizzly bear coming up behind her. He knew they didn't stand a chance. However, a primal instinct swelled inside his chest, overtaking the fear and panic. Without hesitation and without thinking, Johan stepped across Jenna, blocking the charging creature with his body. The bear went into attack mode, biting Johan's thigh with its frightening jaws laced with 3-inch canines. Seeing the horror unfold from only a few feet away, Jenna could do nothing but scream. Next to the polar bear, a grizzly bear's bite sits at an immense force of 1,160 psi, enough to crush a bowling ball without the creature even flinching. The grizzly locked onto Johan's thigh, clamping on the bone like a jackhammer. Johan's gravely desperate screams reflected the searing pain that he felt. It filled the quiet atmosphere of the park. Eventually, the bear readjusted its bite, going in and out of the flesh. Amid the unfolding terror, Johan managed to think clearly. He realized he needed to break loose to survive. Quickly observing the area, Johan noticed the mountain face was on his right, but to his left, a sharp drop. However, behind him, shy of 20 feet, was an alder patch on a slight slope from the cliff. Johan immediately dove into the bushes, landing on his side. His head spun and his teeth clattered upon impact, but he was okay. His right eye was already bleeding, but there was no time to tend to his wounds. Jenna was left with the bear. "Down here," Johan yelled at Jenna, instructing her to jump toward him. Jenna saw the can of bear spray and immediately went to pick it up. However, she didn't know how to work the can. Without time to read the instructions, Jenna realized she needed to get away. Without hesitation, she leaped towards the cliff, not knowing where she was landing. Though the possibility of death crossed her mind, it was on her terms, better than getting mauled into pieces by an angry apex predator. However, Johan didn't know this and continued to yell at his daughter. The bear cocked its head, looking down at him from the alder patch. It had his scent, and there was no fooling it. Poking its head from the slope, the bear pounced on Johan, covering the 20-foot distance like it was nothing. Johan had never seen something move so solid and so fast. Forced into a fetal position, Johan was partially protected by his pack. However, the bear was keen on finishing him to protect her cubs. The creature lifted Johan from the bushes with its mouth, attempting to flip him. It clawed at his back, slashing his clothes and tearing his skin apart. Johan's mind started to race. All he wanted to do was keep the bear away from Jenna. The next thing he knew, he fell 30 feet down, hitting the ground with his face. He was rattled, bruised, and severely injured, but he was alive. When Johan regained composure, he realized he had landed on the same ledge Jenna was on. However, the bear was still after him. Johan accidentally brought the grizzly straight to Jenna. Standing on its hind legs, the bear cocked its head back and forth, letting loose a deafening growl. Seeing the beast, Johan and Jenna scrambled for safety, but there was nowhere to go. The bear dropped to its massive front paws and went in for the kill, charging the defenseless father and daughter. Jenna tried to hide behind a nearby bush, but Johan decided to stay within the creature's sights, putting on a brave face and facing it head on. As mighty and immovable as the bear was, Johan's determination to protect his daughter was just as unstoppable. Johan grabbed the nearest weapon he could find, a sharp rock. However, it quickly crumbled into dust in his hands. The bear's amber-brown eyes stared straight into Johan's fearful face. It was like staring down the barrel of a shotgun. Johan was certain his life was over. The fight was on again. The bear chomped down on Johan's arm, piercing the flesh and locking its jaws onto the bone. Johan fought hard, but he was simply no match for the bear's strength. From a few feet away, Jenna watched in horror. She resisted the temptation of trying to help her father in the scuffle. The bear went for Johan's head, tearing his scalp off and chewing on the bone. He felt his skull cracking, and he screamed at the painful horror. Johan knew this might be the end if he didn't do anything. He was at a crossroads, either fall from the cliff and possibly die on his terms or get mauled by the bear, a guaranteed painful death. It was a reasonably easy deduction. Breaking free from the bear's grip, Johan jumped into the void and landed on a ledge 20 feet away from the commotion. Luckily, a small rocky ridge saved him from certain death. He looked up and saw the bear poking its head from the cliff. The steepness between him and the creature saved him from getting attacked again. However, Jenna was still in danger. Sniffing human flesh in the air, the bear scored the area for Jenna. As it approached the bushes where she hid, Jenna felt the bear's panting on her neck. Her stomach churned in fear. Eventually, the bear attacked again. Its massive jaws chomped on her head, ripping her lower jaw open. However, a sense of clarity washed over her. Jenna decided to play dead and stay as still as possible. It worked. The bear left the scene, convinced the threat was neutralized. Terrified the bear might come back if he made a sound, Johan stayed still for 2 grueling minutes. Eventually, he couldn't remain still. He had to check on Jenna. Bleeding profusely, Johan worked through the pain to prop himself up against the mountain face. There were no sounds from the ledge above. Suddenly, Jenna's voice pierced through the eerie silence. Johan was filled with gratitude. Johan touched his head and could feel only bone. He explored no further, realizing he was severely injured. He reached for his nylon jacket and protected his exposed scalp. Unfortunately, the adrenaline in his body was wearing off, and he was in danger of going into shock. Meanwhile, Jenna screamed as loud as she could. "Help!" she repeated at the top of her lungs. Eventually, other hikers heard her, prompting their rescue 2 hours later. Johan and Jenna were airlifted to the nearby hospital. Johan's spine and neck were severed in the attack, and his scalp needed a skin graft. He had a punctured eye, a broken nose, and broken ribs. However, his ego was intact. More importantly, he protected Jenna. After 9 operations and several months in the hospital, Johan fully recovered. Meanwhile, Jenna also underwent surgery. She began university wrapped in bandages. They say a man's true character shows in the face of certain death. Johan showed he had a heart of gold and guts made of titanium. Although the incident was terrible, it could have been prevented had the two gone over and reviewed their precautionary measures. Certainly, Jenna could have learned how to use the bear spray before heading onto the hike. Additionally, the bear spray canister could have been kept by Johan's side where he could reach it easily. Fortunately, the two could reflect on these hard lessons as they were given another chance at life, thankful for each new day after narrowly escaping their final affliction.